managers who deal with text a lot of the time. The last time I showed you a couple of improvements to the typical editor interface in terms of having different font sizes and adjustments. Shall we have a quick look at this when we open the full screen editor here? Then the toolbar on the top, as you can see, has also received a couple of refreshes in terms of the design. But when we go to the view toolbar, not only can we toggle the layout between segment view for the old school translation folks in our audience and the famous layout view that we have in GB translation, where we can see that we have a preview in HTML nicely generated, so we know exactly we can work on things in context. And the last time I showed, which let's just briefly summarize that again, how we can adjust font size, we can even adjust line spacing, which isn't something you can do in any other commercial translation software, far as I know. And the font family with the typical choices between a modern UI font like Inter, Roboto, which is of course on Google's Android and Google products, and nice serif fonts like this one that I like, that we can modify the intensity of highlighting when that's used with archives, and the background colors can be freely changed. For the purposes of this video, perhaps let's use this blue here just to mix it up a little bit. And then we have also something that we always wanted to exist in other apps, which is the review mode. So when we click on the review mode, we now have only the final version of the document with no side-by-side view anymore, which is so that you can do your final proofreading again in here. You don't need to do export into Microsoft Word and then read it once more there, because you can see everything in context just fine and you have no need for this. Also, the editor has received a refresh, whereas we now do not have an edit button anymore, but the editing is switched on by default. And if you just wanted to do a viewing without the danger of making any unintended edits, you can use the toggle and switch it to view. But let's go and deactivate the review mode again, and let's have a look at a couple of the extras. Extras is where we have some really cool things. Let me just center that toolbar here by collapsing the other ones. Smart Tools, Archive, Extras, and View. Those are the toolbars. We make it simple, and you can see how useful these features are. We have the eye break function, which I showed the last time, where if you switch it on, and as you can see, everything has keyboard shortcuts, because as I said, it's really made for linguists, by linguists. If you go to extras, and then you have the cheat sheet, which in itself I think does not have a keyboard shortcut, but okay, here it is. The whole point is that you can't remember them. You have to mouse over there to cheat sheet. Perhaps that is why it in itself doesn't have a keyboard shortcut, but there you can see the different shortcuts for also the view modes. So layout views, Control Shift and L. Segments, we didn't have the S, so we took the G for SEG. Segments, the second consonant in the word, Control Shift and G. Sync scroll, the same, we took the Y from sync. Shift Control and Y, which is basically the parallel scrolling of these two sections, enable or disable. And also these functions, Stopwatch and Timer, have their own keyboard shortcuts. I know a lot of translators and linguists and editors work with a timer. I do so myself whenever I have to do a longer translation. I try to do 20 or 30 minutes intervals of intensive work and then take a break of an hour, of a few minutes, and then continue. I find it helps me be productive. Or generally speaking, you might want to sit at your computer only for 45 minutes at the time. And so what we've got here basically is this. We've got a timer. So the timer is basically like a Pomodoro timer. So you can configure the duration here. Say I want to do a work session of 20 minutes. That's the maximum I can do these days for translation. And then I'll switch on the timer and it'll start right here. And it's nicely displayed in line in the toolbar. And after 20 minutes I'll get once again the dimmed screen and get a reminder to get up, take a breath, walk around, take a break, and come back. So it's like a Pomodoro timer that you can have on your computer, but we built it right into the editing environment. And why not? It's an easy thing to do, and it really something that translators use all the time. We also have a stopwatch. If you were, for example, billing a client by the hour, or even just for you wanted to know how much time you're spending on what, you see the same thing happens. You could even have them both at the same time if you really wanted to. That's kind of confusing. Okay, so we reset that, and then the button resets and says timer again, and we have now the stopwatch running, and it'll measure how long we take. Maybe we just want to know for future projects, or if we're working on 5 identical texts, how long do it take for one of these texts, and then we can measure it here with the stopwatch right inside the app, which is one of the many quality of life improvements that we're building into Suti, so that it's not just a document editor like every other, but it actually provides functions that a translator uses every day, but built right into the Suti app. If you then wanted to make this even more compact, you can always toggle the labels here on and off, and then as you can see, you now don't have the labels, making the toolbars a lot more compact. You could have it all open now, and it wouldn't take up a whole lot of your screen. But even in this collapsed state, you still have the stopwatch nicely displayed here. If we resume it here, 34, 35, 36, okay. Even when you collapse the labels and the buttons, you have still the time displayed here under extras. Extras is going to be a really cool component of the Suti app, in that it'll bring quality of life and work improvements that have nothing to do with a traditional editor, but a lot of people like to use regardless, and it's right there for you at your fingertips, and you can use keyboard shortcuts for quick toggling of your Pomodoro sessions. Isn't that what we all always wanted? Okay, so thank you for watching, and the next video I will make about the document management within Suti, but this one was about quality of life and work improvements in the editing toolbar in Suti. Thank you, and see you in the next one.